Hello, and thank you so much for serving in the elementary classrooms on this Sunday, October 20th, 2024. I'm going to give you a quick general knowledge thing at the beginning of the video before I move into this week's lesson, and that is these two cabinets at the back of our second and third grade classroom. They are in the alcove. These are material cabinets, so these are good places for you to be able to access should the need arise. So in here on the right, and also one of the shelves on the left, contain materials so that if for some reason you were in the middle of a lesson and you ran out of a material or you realized you were missing a material, this is where you would go. So inside of here, everything is labeled. You have full access to these as needed. One teacher would need to stay with the class while the other teacher could run back here and grab it, or you could even call the floater and ask them to come back and grab the material. There's paper, there's all kinds of things down here that are labeled in their little bins. On the very top is the random bin of like just various supplies like balls, dice, puzzles, things that aren't used regularly, but they do tend to kind of appear in our lessons every 2 or 3 months. So we keep them on hand just in case. But so this is your materials. On the right hand side, there is a shelf full of paint materials as well, if you were to find the need for those during your lesson. Now also, please use these shelves to restock the materials that you use during your lesson. So when you finish teaching for the day, one of you should be doing the checkout while the other person should be putting the things away. If there's copies left over, throw those in the garbage can. But if there are construction paper left over or tissue paper or crayons or whatever, you can bring it back to these two cabinets and just put it back in its appropriate spot. Now over in this cabinet right here is a little bit different. So I said down here is the paint supplies. The bottom is kind of crafting, I'm sorry, they are center supplies for our second and third graders down there. But the top shelves are different. The very top shelf is for teachers. There's spray to use on the whiteboards if kids wrote on them. There's just, big scissors, staplers, paper clips, Sharpies, dry erase markers, all of those types of things, as well as baggies if the kids were making something that had lots of pieces and they didn't finish it and they want to bring it home, you can stick it in a baggie. Now down here, these two shelves are labeled by grade level because this room is accessible to 4th and 5th graders as well as 2nd and 3rd graders. It's just extra crayons, pencils, and markers, as well as scissors. Scissors are not left out in those two classrooms because we did order bigger ones this year. They are very large and very sharp. So we keep them in here. If you ever need them during a lesson, send one of the teachers to come grab them out of this because I don't want them just sitting out during the week. But that is it for here. So yes, please, at the end of your teaching time, have one of the teachers clean up the materials, and that just means throwing away any extra copies that you have, as well as the copies of the lesson plans, and putting any of those extra materials that you used back into these two cabinets. All right, so now we're going to move into the parts that will actually affect you for this week. And first is our schedule. So our schedule is posted on the board. It does have it dated. So this week is October 20th. So this is the schedule that you will be following. This is the normal class schedule. It changes a little on Memory Verse Sunday, but for our normal week, this is what we follow. So as always, on regular weeks, you are going to, when the kids arrive, they can just visit until 10 o'clock. If you are in kindergarten and first grade or second and third grade and they need something to do to keep their hands busy, there are coloring sheets on the back of their take-home sheets. So you can just give them their take-home sheet and they can work on the coloring activity that is on the back of it at one of the tables in their classroom. Kindergarten and first grade, that is just the expectation for them. Their coloring sheets should be out on the tables ready for them to color. Second and third grade is just if you notice that they need that would work. And then at 10 o'clock, you're going to immediately begin your belong activity in your small group. That should be about 10 minutes long. And then at 10:10, you're going to walk to the large group classroom because you need to be seated and ready for it to begin at 10:15. So if you're in second and third grade, bring your iPad to check kids in as well as your Bibles. If you're in 4th and 5th grade, you need to bring a lot of stuff because you guys will be leaving to go upstairs at the end of large group lesson. So 4th and 5th graders, you're going to bring the iPad. You're also going to bring your walkie-talkie and cell phones. Bring your upstairs key, which is already in that yellow bag, the lesson plans, and any materials that are on your cart for Believe and Become activities, which is very small. It'll fit right in that yellow bag. So at 10:15, the large group lesson will begin, and that will end at 10:48. 4th and 5th graders will be dismissed slightly early. kind of right before the memory verse song begins so that they can start their walk upstairs and have that time together. And then you're going to do believe activity for 10 minutes, become activity for 10 minutes, and then small group wrap up and discipleship discussion. We talked about this during training, but these last two activities are based on question and discussion. If the kids are doing an activity where you feel like those pieces can kind of work within those activities, that is a great way to bring those in as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go into our small group lessons. If you are teaching kindergarten and first grade, or second and third grade small group and not large group, then this section is for you, and you can watch it and then you can be done with the video, unless if you just want to know what the other groups are doing. So second and third grade and kindergarten and first grade, you will have the same lesson plans through the new year, as those second and third graders are still pretty young at the beginning of the year. So for your belong activity, everything is color-coded and labeled. I'm just going to show that to you briefly. So belong is blue, and it will say belong, as well as how's it going. What you see here, blue, belong, how's it going. The next one is believe, which is going to be that orangey color. It'll say believe in color-coded orange, and there it is. And it's that way every week for all of these. So if you're having trouble finding the part of the lesson, just look for the color, look for that label for the section that it is, as well as the title. So kindergarten, first grade, second and third grade, you're going to start with how's it going from 10 o'clock until 10:10. You need papers that are labeled 1 through 5 to do this activity. It is scripted if that is how you feel comfortable, but also if you've had a chance to look at it ahead of time and you feel comfortable without reading the script, I do highly recommend that, because the kids want to get to know you and your voice, not just the scripted curriculum. So if you look in here, belong, there's your numbers 1 through 5 papers. Kindergarten, first grade, you have the same thing. So then you're going to go to large group, and when you come back, you're going to do believe, clap and pat. For this, you don't need any materials other than looking it up in the Bible. And so they'll be looking up the verse that is our memory verse for the month in Zephaniah, and doing an activity that they just are going to be doing some clapping and patting for this activity. And then following that, they're going to be doing the purple activity, which is our become activity, lots of feelings. There is a printable page that is already cut out for you. It is here. They have lots of different emotions on there. They're just going to use those cards to do this activity. And then following that, then they're going to do their wrap up, which this addresses the 3 questions that are set during large group are a he, we, me. The he and the we are answered during large group, but the me is answered at the end of small group. They're going to choose their challenge. This comes from the take home sheet, and you're going to pray together. You don't have to do the say goodbye until the very end. And then discipleship discussion always kind of references back to an important aspect of our story that we read this week. So what does the story of Ruth, if you look in the corner, you can always see what the story is that's going to be taught during the large group Bible lesson. And so what does the story of Ruth mean for followers of Jesus? And how does it have to do with something that affects my life today? So what about the death of a loved one? Because that is very, very prevalent, obviously, in the story of Ruth, and it affects us today. And so how does this story kind of teach us how we should respond to that, and what does God have to say about it? So the discipleship discussion is going to be the same in all small groups, but so this is specific to our kindergarten, first grade, second and third grade. If you are teaching those small groups, you're not teaching large group, then you are done with your video, and I'm going to move on next to our 4th and 5th grade small group. All right, my 4th and 5th grade small group teachers, this one is for you. Most importantly, there's your yellow bag. You can use that to carry all of those things that were on that schedule that you saw earlier in here. Make sure especially that you really do not forget your walkie-talkie and cell phones, because that's how we can communicate to you when it is time to come back downstairs. Generally, 11:20 is the generally accepted rule, but when I am in service, if service is running long or short, I will text you to let you know. If I'm not in service, and just be listening for that walkie-talkie to tell you. All right, so you guys at 10 o'clock are going to start your belong activity, which is frozen by the famine. You need no supplies for that. That is here. Again, they're always color-coded and labeled. So if you look here, Belong is always in blue. It says belong in the corner, and then there's the title. Then when you get upstairs, the first thing you're going to do is your Believe activity, which is a blindfolded verse wall. This one looked really fun. So you have some cutouts of the memory verse. You have 2 blindfolds and some tape. If you look here under your Believe cart, it is here. All of these things will fit in your yellow bag, so just make sure you grab them in the yellow bag before you go to large group so that you have them to take upstairs with you. Then after that, your next activity that you're going to do when you are upstairs is Let's Talk. And on here, there are some papers as well that are in your Belong bin right here. I'm sorry, Become, not Belong. Become bin. So you just pull those out, add those to your yellow bag so that you have them when you get upstairs. All of this is scripted. You do want to take the time to read through this so that you kind of know how to guide these discussions, because these are very important, good, deep discussions for the kids. Following that, when you get into wrap up, you're going to get to your me question, which was set during large group. They set the 3 questions, the he, we, me, and we saved the me for small group. So you can talk about what does the story, learning the attributes of God, what does today's story about Ruth mean for my life. Choosing your challenge comes from the take-home sheet. You can pray together, and then on the last page, just the same as the other small groups, the discipleship discussion is always the same for all the groups. It uses the story from today and the attribute of God that we've been learning this month about how God is mighty, and how does that affect our lives today. So what does the story of Ruth mean for followers of Jesus? And what about a death of a loved one? The story of Ruth is a beautiful picture of how what God has to say about death and how we should respond to it here on earth. So if you're teaching 4th and 5th grade, that is it for you guys. You guys are going to be dismissed like a minute earlier than usual. What we're switching into during large group is that as the memory verse song begins, before we press play on it, we're going to dismiss you guys to go ahead and head upstairs to give you an extra minute to get upstairs and have that time together as a small group. And so 4th and 5th grade small group, that is it. If you are teaching large group, continue on watching the video, or if you're curious to know what large group lesson about Ruth is going to look like, you may continue watching. Otherwise, you are done, and we will see you on Sunday. Okay, last but not least, we have our large group teachers. So large group teachers, this week we're doing the story of Ruth. There are 3 copies of your lesson plan because one of them is for your tech helper that you guys will talk about during your huddle in the morning. One of the people who is not doing large group teaching can be in charge of moving those slides so that the teachers don't have to worry about doing that. The first thing for the tech helper is that we did make the switch over here to a PowerPoint. So this will be set up on Sunday for our lesson about Ruth. It's actually already set up. And so you're just going to be able to click through the slides like this. The videos are in there. I will move them around so everything is in order. And you're just going to kind of click through that, pointing it at the computer while they are teaching their lesson on Sunday. So here's how it's going to go. The way that we usually do it is one person does the Bible teaching. That's 10 minutes long. That's the meatiest part of it. And then the other teacher does the other 4 parts: the welcome, the find it in the Bible, the review, and the wrap up. It needs to start right at 10:15 and end right at 10:48, or even a minute or 2 early if you're able to. So for the welcome, you do need 2 baskets, 2 different colors of pom-poms, and a timer. You can just watch the wall clock for the timer. It doesn't need to be set anywhere. So it is here. If you're tech helper, your only job during this one is to play the intro video. So it is scripted. You're doing that fun intro activity, setting the important questions for today, the he, the we, and the me, and then showing that intro video and having that quick discussion. I'm going to show you the materials are already out here. It does tell you to spread them around on the ground. You might just want to do it just kind of like up here, away from where the kids are. And here are their baskets. So they're going to be trying to race and pick up as many of those colored pom-poms as they can. And then after that welcome, you're going to move into find it in the Bible. We always point to God's big story and where does it fit? Where does this story fit within God's big story? Always draw their eyes. That is a slide. So tech helper, you can pull that slide up, but always draw their eyes up to here. We have this big, beautiful poster that has it on here. So once you have drawn their eyes to that, then you're going to read this part where the story for today is located, which is located in the book of Ruth, chapters 1-4. And I have that already pulled up here, so you're already on the cover of Ruth. Draw the kids' eyes to it. Also, I would recommend giving them a quick recommendation, especially our 4th and 5th graders, if they would like to continue reading Ruth 1 through 4 while we tell the story, they are welcome to do that as well. So then we have our Bible teaching, which there are no materials for this week, so we always pray us in. And then they are going to come up with a pose for each of, you're going to select 5 volunteers. I would recommend you keep those 5 volunteers the same. Have them pre-chosen in your head. I recommend choosing the older kids to get them involved with this. And during this, the tech helper is going to be showing the teaching illustrations, which are going to be on different slides. And at the end of your story, it says to read it directly from the Bible. They have it written out for you here. And you're going to show the slide where you point the story of Ruth to Jesus. Then the next part is the Bible review video. This is in your PowerPoint that you're going to be clicking through. So the Bible review video and then the questions. Every question and answer is its own slide. You're going to have them stand and they're going to show with their number of fingers what their answer is, a 1 or a 2. And then finally is the wrap up where you're going to answer the he and the we question, give the bright idea for today, and then you're going to pray them out and then start the verse video as you already begin dismissing. So send those 4th and 5th graders out right as you're starting to play the verse video because they'll get the practice with it during their Believe activity, but that way they can start heading upstairs maybe a minute early or so. The other thing that I would recommend is if you realize that you are running long with your story and you're running short on time, the places to cut it, you don't want to cut the answering the he and the we. You don't want to cut praying together, obviously. You could cut showing the memory verse video because they're going to look at that during their Believe activity in their group anyway. So if you need to cut, you can cut there. Another place that you could cut is you could cut either the questions that follow the story or the review video, one or the other. If you're really behind, then you could cut both, but the preference would be to cut one or the other. And you just kind of have to make those decisions spur of the moment if you realize that you're running behind on time because you do have to be wrapped up completely by 10:48 so that everyone can get back to their small group. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for serving. I'm excited for you guys to be here. Thank you guys for all that you do, and we'll see you on Sunday.